All right, what is going on, everybody? I hope you're all doing well, and thank you so much for watching. On my desk is the Jam Pedals Pink Flow. Check that thing out. Now, I know what you're all thinking. You're thinking, man, that's an awful lot of knobs and switches for an overdrive pedal. But let me tell you, no, I'm just kidding. It is a multi-effect pedal that sounds amazing. The idea behind it was to get after all those amazing Gilmour, Pink Floyd sounds, hence the name Pink Flow. But it's capable of quite a bit more than that, and I really tried to display that in that little performance piece that I wrote at the top of the video. It definitely will do the Gilmour thing, but it's, you know, I wanted you guys to hear kind of how I would use it, especially how I would use the chorus and the delay and even the overdrive sounds. So it's capable of quite a bit more than that, but the idea was to get those Gilmour sounds, those Pink Floyd sounds. It has 7 all analog effects on it. Jam Pedals is known for using really, really high quality components. They use the top shelf stuff, and that's why this thing sounds so good. So what effects are on it? Just quickly, it has a compressor, an overdrive, a fuzz/distortion, a chorus, a phaser, and an all analog delay. Now, that being said, what you're getting is a compressor called the Dinosaur. It combines like a Ross comp and a Dynacomp kind of all in one. It sounds great. You get a level and sustain control, as well as the obvious foot switch. Right next to that, the overdrive I spoke of is called the Tube Dreamer. This one's based on an 808 circuit. Sounds fabulous. You get level, gain, and tone, and a toggle switch to allow you to choose between low and high gain. We'll check that thing out in the demo. The Muff Fuzz or Fuzz style pedal that I mentioned that's on here is based on the Civil War fuzz along with the 71 fuzz. It's kind of a combination of the two. You get level, gain, and tone. This thing sounds huge. There's a switch that allows you to choose between symmetrical and asymmetrical. We will check that out. After that, we're getting into the modulation and delay section. The chorus I mentioned is called Waterfall. It's one of my favorite choruses. Just a really fat sounding analog chorus. You get depth and speed. You have a toggle switch that allows you to choose between the intensity of the depth. And then next to that, you have a switch that allows you to choose between chorus or vibrato. We'll check that out in the demo. The next modulation effect that I mentioned was the phaser. It's called Ripple. It's a 2-stage phaser, really simple layout. It just has a speed control. Sounds really great. We'll check that out in the demo. And then, of course, the analog delay is the Delay Llama, really rich sounding analog delay, up to 600 milliseconds of delay. You get your time, level, and repeats, as well as tap tempo, which is great. You can choose between eighth, quarter, and dotted eighth via the toggle switch. There's also a switch called Trails that allows you to do exactly that. If you want this to trail off as you shut off the delay, that's what that switch is for. If you just want it to be true bypass, you can throw it the other way. There are some internal trim pots on this thing. In the Waterfall, there's an internal trim pot that allows you to adjust the high speed, which is really cool. There's 2 other trim pots that basically apply to the Delay Llama. One is the amount of repeats. It allows you to increase that. The other one is the amount of trails. So how many repeats or trails do you get when you bypass the unit? That's what's going on there. You have an external input for tap tempo, as well as an expression input that allows you via an expression pedal to change the delay time. And I did forget to mention the 7th effect. We'll call it the 7th effect. The 7th element is called Seagull. It's a cool kind of oscillation thing. I'm not sure quite how it works, but it's based on that song called Echoes. It's a long song. It's like 23 minutes, but somewhere in that middle section is where you're going to hear this thing. It kind of sounds like a synth or maybe a Moog oscillation or something like that. This effect is based on that. you basically leave your guitar all the way up and then stab the button and it oscillates, and then you can kind of manipulate it via the guitar's controls. We'll check that out in the demo. I'll let you know how I used it. I'll show you, and you can hear it in the demo. I used it just briefly, but I'll let you know how I got that all going. Obviously, in on this side, out on this side, 9 volts DC power. Oh, and I do need to mention it has an effects loop. I did use the effects loop. I thought it was so cool that it was basically between the gain and the modulation. So for me, I was like, well, what would I want in there? Well, what's not on here is a reverb. So I got out a reverb pedal and plugged that in. I'll show you how I use that. It's very cool. Okay. Let's check this thing out. It's called the Jam Pedals Pink Flow. Okay, let's get some sounds. Here's just the guitar into the amp. And here is the Pink Flow. Okay, cool. I was just kind of noodling through some of it's not exact, but some of the settings that I did to do that performance, showed you kind of all the various gain staging. As I mentioned before, I am using this little Sidekick Junior, just the reverb in the effects loop, because it's the one thing, since this has an effects loop, That's what I would want, is some sort of reverb in there to go along with this really lush sounding delay. So let's just go through it. I've demoed many of these on their own. So if you want super in depth, definitely check those demos out. But I'll go through each one of these, and we'll check out this Seagull thing for sure. I'll kind of explain how I used it. So we'll start with the compressor. I like the Dynarosser. It's a combination between like a Ross comp and a Dynacomp, but it also adds some top end that I really like. And also when you're wanting to level out your clean with everything else, it comes in really handy. But just to start, I liked it just to kind of boost level. So you can use it for a bunch of sustain and squish, or you can kind of go more the route I would go is, a little bit less sustain, but with some level. So you could either leave it on all the time, which is an old Nashville trick. I don't know that a lot of players do that as much anymore, but for a time they were taking like old Dynacomps and just barely having just a little bit of sustain or compression on, and then just adjusting the level. But for me, it's like I like it just to keep my clean kind of balanced with my overdrives. So speaking of overdrives, the next in the chain is going to be the Tube Dreamer, which is an 808 tube screamer kind of thing. Sounds really cool. So it's great. I've got it set to the higher gain. We can throw it to the lower gain. It's great for that kind of blues thing. If you want more gain than that, there's plenty on tap. Just throw the switch. So using it in conjunction with, the delay over here. Now, the other thing you can do with it too is, because this not only has like compression to it, I'm talking about the Dynarosser again, but also adds a little bit of top end. You could use it to push this a little harder if you wanted. So that's what's going on there. That's what I used for that first solo kind of Gilmore-y thing, which is what this multi-effect is all about. Okay, cool. That's what's going on there. Cool. Next is the Red Muck. That is the kind of Russian big muff thing. Throw the switch, another voice, different saturation. It's just really big, fat sounding. That's what I used for all the those big overdriven, or I should say, fuzz kind of pads that were in that performance. That's what I did. Just threw the switch for left side, and then threw the switch for the right side, and let it rip. And of course, you can do the solo thing with it. But yeah, I dug it for those big pad passes that I did. So that's what's going on with the Red Muck. Really cool sounding. You can run it together with. You can run it together with the Tube Dreamer, which is cool. One of my favorite choruses is definitely this Waterfall. Just super fat and rich sounding. You can go from that to more of the vibrato thing. So yeah, super fat, and then of course the ripple. That's what's going on with that. Simple one controls the speed. And then of course the delay llama, really fat analog delay. Okay, and I was using, as I mentioned, the effects loop, a reverb. It's Crazy Tube Circuit's little Sidekick Junior. I'm just using the reverb. It's like a plate reverb. It's after the gain, so it's after the red muck and before the waterfall and the ripple. That's what I'm using that for. Sounds cool. Once again, that for me was like, well, that's what I would want in the effects loop, and I'm so glad there's an effects loop there. You could put a volume pedal in there too because it's post gain, so that would be handy. But that's what's going on there. Last but not least is this gull thing. It's fun. The way I ended up doing it was because I knew it was before everything. I actually adjusted the level of it via the compressor. So that's how I got that sound. So I've got all this stuff on, and then because it's going basically through everything, yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's obviously more gadgety, but it was cool, and that's how I used it. I kept messing with it until I got the pitch I wanted, and then just turned it on for that one little section. So that's what's going on with that. Somehow it oscillates. You have to have your volume. You have to have your volume all the way up. And then slight adjustments to the volume or even pickup position can change the pitch. So that's what's going on there. Hopefully I've covered everything. Like I said, I'm not going to go in depth on every single one of these. It's a really good sounding pedal, and it's a lot of fun to have on my desk. So thank you so much for watching. If you've got any other questions about it, go to the website. And yeah, we'll see you on the next one.